The Charger and the Challenger are two of Dodge's most iconic muscle cars. However, the debate about which is better never seems to end. Well, not for long, because I'll be doing an unbiased comparison of the two in this video. So which one will come out on top, or will it be a draw? Stay tuned to find out. The 1960s was a golden era for American muscle cars, and Dodge wasn't about to be left out of the fun. In 1966, they introduced the Dodge Charger, a car that was all about speed, style, and serious horsepower. But unlike the smaller and sportier Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro, the Charger was built on a full-size B-body platform, making it bigger and more aggressive looking. The fastback roofline was a signature design choice, giving it that sleek, aerodynamic look. Inside, Dodge went with a sporty yet comfortable approach, adding 4 bucket seats and a full-length center console to make drivers feel like they were sitting in a jet cockpit. Under the hood, the Charger had a range of powerful engines to choose from. You could get a modest 5.2-liter V8 making 230 horsepower, or if you had the need for speed and a fat wallet, a fire-breathing 7.0-liter Hemi V8 that cranked out a ridiculous 425 horsepower. That Hemi engine turned the Charger into a straight-line rocket, making it a favorite among drag racers and anyone who wanted to show off at stoplights. But Dodge wasn't done yet. In 1970, they introduced the Challenger to take on the growing pony car market dominated by the Mustang and Camaro. But unlike the Charger, which was more of a full-size muscle car, the Challenger was smaller, lighter, and built for performance. It shared its E-body platform with the Plymouth Barracuda and came in both hardtop and convertible versions. Just like the Charger, the Challenger offered a variety of engine choices, including the legendary 426 Hemi V8. This thing was a beast on the road, delivering the same 425 horsepower as the Charger's Hemi, but in a slightly smaller and lighter package. So while the Charger was built for speed and style with a big aggressive presence, the Challenger was more of a street fighter, designed to go head-to-head with Ford and Chevy's pony cars. The two had different personalities but shared the same Dodge DNA: loud, powerful, and built to dominate the road. Now, if the 60s was all about raw power and muscle, the 70s took a bit of a detour. The early years were still great for muscle cars, but as the decades went on, government regulations, rising gas prices, and insurance hikes started putting the squeeze on high-performance cars. Dodge had to make some changes, and both the Challenger and Charger felt the impact. The Charger kicked off the 70s strong with a refreshed look in 1971. It still had big V8 options, including the legendary 426 Hemi, but things started to shift by the mid-70s. In 1975, Dodge rebranded the Charger as more of a luxury coupe rather than an all-out muscle car. The styling became softer with a bigger, boxier body, and the focus moved toward comfort rather than pure speed. The high-performance Hemi was gone, and instead, buyers got smaller, less powerful V8s that were tuned for fuel economy rather than burnouts. Simply put, the Charger had traded its muscle for a suit and tie. Meanwhile, the Challenger had a shorter run, because after 1974, Dodge pulled the plug on it. The writing was on the wall. Muscle cars were losing popularity, and pony cars like the Challenger were struggling to stay relevant. Dodge decided to step back and regroup, leaving fans without a Challenger for the rest of the decade. And by the end of the 70s, both cars were shadows of their former selves. The Charger had transformed into a personal luxury car, and the Challenger was out of the picture entirely. Dodge had to play by the new rules, and that meant the muscle car era was officially on life support. The 1980s were weird times for American muscle cars. The era of big V8s and gas-guzzling monsters was over, and manufacturers were scrambling to figure out what to do next. Dodge tried to keep the Charger name alive, but what they came up with was quite different. In 1981, the Charger made a comeback, but it wasn't completely unrecognizable. Instead of the big rear-wheel drive muscle car people loved in the 60s and 70s, the new Charger was a compact front-wheel drive hatchback. That's right, Dodge took the name of a muscle car legend and slapped it on a car that shared its platform with the Dodge Omni, an economy car. The big V8s were gone, and in their place were 4-cylinder engines. The most exciting version was the Shelby Charger, which arrived in 1983. It had a turbocharged 2.2-liter engine, making 107 horsepower, and while that might sound laughable compared to the old Chargers, it was actually pretty quick for the time. But let's be real, this was not the Charger muscle car fans wanted. As for the Challenger, well, it was still missing in action. Dodge briefly brought the name back from 1978 to 1983, but it wasn't a real Challenger. It was actually a rebadged Mitsubishi Galant Lambda, a small rear-wheel drive coupe that had nothing in common with the muscle-bound Challenger of the past. The most powerful version had a 2.6-liter four-cylinder engine making just 105 horsepower. And when compared to the old Hemi-powered monster, this thing was a kitten, not a tiger. The 80s were rough for both the Challenger and Charger. The Charger became a sporty economy car, and the Challenger was nothing more than a rebadged import. Now, we have to fast forward to the mid-2000s, and guess what? The Dodge Charger made a grand comeback in 2006. But hold on, this wasn't the two-door muscle car your grandpa knew, no. Dodge shook things up by introducing the Charger as a four-door sedan. Yeah, you heard that right, a muscle car with room for the whole family. But don't let those extra doors fool you, because this Charger packed a serious punch under the hood. The base model came with a 3.5-liter V6 engine, offering a decent 250 horsepower. Not too shabby, right? But for those that were craving more, Dodge had you covered. They offered a 5.7-liter Hemi V8 engine that roared with 340 horsepower, and if that wasn't enough to get your adrenaline pumping, the SRT8 version boasted a massive 6.1-liter Hemi V8 cranking out a whopping 425 horsepower. Now that's how you bring muscle back to the streets. But let's talk about the design. The 2006 Charger blended modern aesthetics with a nod to its classic roots. It featured a bold front grille, sleek lines, and a stance that screamed, "Get out of my way!" Inside, the cabin offered comfort and space, making it a practical choice for those who wanted performance without sacrificing everyday usability. But here's where the story gets better. In 2008, Dodge decided to double down on the nostalgia by reintroducing the Challenger, and boy, did they nail it. The 2008 Challenger paid homage to its 1970s predecessor with a design that made car enthusiasts do a double take. It was like the 1970s muscle car had traveled to the 21st century. Under the hood, the Challenger didn't disappoint. The SRT8 model came roaring with a 6.1-liter Hemi V8 engine, matching the Charger's 425 horsepower. This beast could go from 0 to 60 in just about 4.9 seconds. Now that's faster than you can say, "Pass me the keys." While the Charger offered practicality with its four doors, the Challenger stayed true to its classic coupe form. It was all about performance and style, appealing to those who wanted a more modern muscle car with a retro vibe. Inside, the Challenger combined modern tech with classic touches, making a hit among both old-school enthusiasts and new fans alike. So the mid-2000s saw Dodge bringing back the muscle in a big way. Whether you were hauling the family in the Charger or tearing up the streets in the Challenger, Dodge made sure you did it with style and power. And just when you thought Dodge couldn't get any crazier, they decided to unleash the beast in 2015. Enter the Hellcat versions of the Challenger and Charger, because these weren't just muscle cars. They were muscle monsters. Let's start with the heart of the beast, a supercharged 6.2-liter Hemi V8 engine. This bad boy pumped out an insane 707 horsepower, and I'm going to repeat that to make sure you heard it correctly. 707 horsepower. That's more horses than a Stampede. With this kind of power, the Hellcat Charger could hit 60 miles per hour in just about 3.7 seconds, while the Challenger wasn't far behind. These cars weren't just fast, they were blistering fast. But Dodge didn't stop there. They wanted to make sure everyone knew these Hellcats meant business. Both models had aggressive styling like a menacing front grille, hood scoops to gulp in air, and wider bodies to keep them glued to the road. Inside, the cabins were a blend of comfort and performance-focused features, ensuring you felt like a race car driver every time you got behind the wheel. And let's talk about that exhaust note. The Hellcats roared like lions on steroids. Rev the engine and you'd set off car alarms 2 blocks away. It was pure, unadulterated automotive music to any gearhead's ears. For real, Dodge didn't just create cars, they created a phenomenon. The Hellcat badge became synonymous with raw power and performance. Car enthusiasts couldn't get enough, and the Hellcats quickly became legends in the automotive world. Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, and in 2023, Dodge dropped a bombshell. They announced the end of the line for the Charger and Challenger. It was like hearing your favorite band was breaking up, but Dodge wasn't going to let these icons ride off into the sunset without a proper send-off. To celebrate their legacy, Dodge introduced 7 special last call models. Each one was a tribute to the heritage of the Charger and Challenger, featuring unique designs, exclusive badges, and of course, plenty of horsepower. These models were the automotive equivalent of a mic drop. Fans scrambled to get their hands on these limited editions, knowing it was their last chance to own a piece of muscle car history. Because the last call models weren't just cars, they were collector items. A nod to decades of tire-smoking, heart-pounding performance. So is it the Charger or the Challenger for you? Head to the comments and tell us, and if you want more awesome muscle car content, then my channel's the only place to be. So we'll see you in the next video and out on the open road. Thanks for watching.